She's completely unstable. That's what my mother-in-law told the mediator. Sat right across from me in that little conference room with her reading glasses and her pearls, and said it like she was commenting on the weather. She's always been unstable. We never trusted her with our son. I didn't say a word. I just looked at my hands on the table and thought about my daughter's birthday. About the way she had stood at the window in her little purple dress for 45 minutes, watching the driveway. I let them keep talking. My name is Serena, and I turned 32 in March. For the last 6 years, I worked as a forensic auditor at a firm you've never heard of, unless you've been on the wrong side of a federal investigation. We find money, hidden money, shell accounts, misreported assets, offshore transfers, the kind of paperwork that makes grown men cry in depositions. I'm good at it. I'm quiet at it. I don't talk about it at dinner parties because it makes people uncomfortable. And honestly, I've always preferred to be underestimated. My ex-husband's family never knew what I did for a living. Not really. Conrad told them I was in finance. His mother pictured me processing invoices somewhere. His father called me the accountant, like it was a mild insult. That was fine with me. I married Conrad when I was 26. He was warm and funny, and his family was everything mine wasn't. Big Sunday dinners, cousins everywhere, his mom making pie from scratch. I wanted that. I wanted it so badly that I didn't let myself see the other things clearly enough at first. The way his parents treated his sister's husband differently than they treated me. The way his mother would look at me sometimes when she didn't know I was watching. The small, careful ways they made me understand that I was tolerated, not welcomed. We had our daughter Lily when I was 28. She fixed everything and she broke everything the way babies do. Conrad and I found out quickly that we wanted different versions of our life. He wanted to move back to his hometown 40 minutes from his parents, into the house his grandfather had built. I had a career that required me in the city. We tried. We really did try. The divorce was finalized 11 months ago. We share custody. Lily is 4. Her birthday is in October. She turned 4 on a Tuesday, so we agreed to do the family celebration the following Saturday. I planned everything. Custom cake. Purple with little silver stars because that's her thing this year. Stars and the moon and anything that glows. I rented a bounce house for the backyard. I ordered personalized favor bags with her name on them. I made a playlist of every song she'd asked me to play in the car for the past 3 months. Conrad's parents, his mother Sandra and his father Jean, had confirmed. His sister Patrice confirmed. His brother, a man I'll call Robert because that is actually his name, and he never did anything wrong, confirmed with his wife and their 2 kids. Saturday morning I was up at 6 blowing up balloons. At 9:15, Sandra texted Conrad. He came into the kitchen with his phone tilted slightly away from me, which is something he does when he doesn't want me to see the screen, which means I always see the screen. Something came up, he said. What came up? He rubbed the back of his neck. They have a thing. What thing, Conrad? My parents got last-minute tickets to a charity gala, black tie. My dad's been trying to get into this thing for 2 years. It's a pretty big deal for him, and Lily's birthday party starts in 3 hours. He didn't answer. Patrice canceled 40 minutes later. She said she didn't feel well. I have since learned, through Robert's wife, who told me in confidence, and I will protect that confidence, that Patrice went to the gala too. They had a 4th ticket. Lily asked me 4 times that morning if her grandma and grandpa were coming. The first 3 times I said yes. The 4th time I didn't answer right away, and she looked at my face the way 4-year-olds do when they're reading something you didn't mean to show them, and she said, "Did they forget?" I told her no. I told her everyone who loved her was coming. I told her to go put on her purple dress. My college roommate came. My coworker Diane came with her kids. Robert and his wife came, thank God, and their boys played in the bounce house until they were sweaty and ridiculous, and Lily forgot to keep watching the driveway. We sang happy birthday. She blew out 4 candles plus 1 for luck. I stood behind her and cried just for a second, quietly, into her hair. That night, after she was asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a glass of wine and I thought, okay. I see how this is going to go. 3 days later, Sandra called me directly, which she almost never does. She wanted to know if she could take Lily for a special grandmother's day, just the two of them, to make it up to her. I said, of course, she'd love that, and I meant it, because I will never, under any circumstances, use Lily as a weapon. That is the one thing I decided the night of her birthday, and I have not moved off it since. But I also made another decision that night, a quieter one. Sandra and Jean had been putting pressure on Conrad for months to renegotiate the custody arrangement. They wanted Lily in their town, closer to the family, enrolled in the school district near their house. Conrad had been making noises about filing a modification. His attorney had sent a letter suggesting I was inflexibly focused on my career at the expense of the child's familial bonds, which is a sentence I read approximately 40 times and felt get smaller and smaller until it was just a sound, not a threat. Here's what Conrad's family did not know about me. Jean, my father-in-law, owned 4 commercial properties in the city. One of them was being managed through a holding company that he had never fully disclosed during our divorce proceedings. It had come up briefly and been waved away as a minor asset. I had been tired and I had wanted the divorce to be over, and I had let it go. I did not let it go anymore. I'm a forensic auditor. I find money. I found it. I spent 3 weeks in the evenings after Lily was in bed pulling public records, property filings, business entity registrations, tax documents accessible through public disclosure. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was doing exactly what I do at work, for free, at my kitchen table with a glass of water and a spreadsheet. The holding company had co-signatories. One of them was Conrad. He had a 30% stake in a commercial property that had never appeared in our asset disclosure. I called my attorney on a Wednesday morning and I said, I need you to look at something. She looked at it. She called me back in 2 hours and said, Serena, where did you get this? Public records. A pause. All of it. All of it. All of it. Another pause. Okay, she said. Okay, we need to talk. The mediation was Sandra's idea, which I found almost funny in retrospect. She wanted to sit down and reach an understanding about Lily's future. She wanted everyone in a room together. She arranged it through Conrad's attorney, scheduled it for a Thursday afternoon, and I said yes immediately because I had been waiting for exactly this. I wore my gray blazer, the one I wear to federal depositions. Sandra arrived with Conrad and their attorney, a man named Douglas who had clearly never expected to spend his Thursday afternoon in the same room as me. He had a folder. He had talking points. He had that specific energy of a man who thinks he is the smartest person in the room because no one has told him otherwise yet. Sandra opened by telling the mediator that she was concerned about my stability, about my work hours, about Lily spending too many evenings with a sitter while I was at the office. I let her finish. Then my attorney opened her folder and set 3 documents on the table and said, We'd like to discuss the Calloway Street property. The temperature in that room changed. I watched it happen. Conrad went very still. Douglas looked at the documents, then at Conrad, then back at the documents. Sandra said, I don't know what that is. My attorney said pleasantly, That's all right. Mr. Conrad Wells certainly does. Conrad had gone the color of copy paper. Here's the thing about holding back information and asset disclosure during divorce proceedings. It is not a minor clerical issue. It is fraud. Civil fraud. Potentially criminal exposure depending on jurisdiction and a judge's mood, and at minimum a complete reopening of the settlement agreement. Douglas said, I'm going to need a moment with my client. We took a 15-minute break. I got a coffee from the little machine in the hallway and stood by the window and looked at the parking garage across the street. My hands were completely steady. I had known this moment was coming for 3 weeks, and I had made my peace with it. When we reconvened, Douglas's entire posture had changed. Sandra looked like she wanted to say something to me and couldn't find the words. The mediator was doing the careful neutral face that mediators practice. My attorney put a second set of documents on the table. We're also prepared to file for an upward modification of child support, she said, consistent with the corrected asset picture. Silence. Then my attorney looked up from her papers and said directly to Douglas, Do you need us to clarify anything, or are we in agreement about how we'd like to proceed? We proceeded. Conrad agreed to a corrected settlement. The property interest was properly valued, and I received what I should have received 18 months ago. The custody arrangement stayed exactly as it was. The motion for modification was withdrawn. Douglas filed the paperwork that made it official on a cold Friday morning, and I signed my name at the bottom, and my attorney said, "You did good," and I said, "I know." What I want to tell you about, though, is what happened after. Gene called me. Not Conrad, not their attorney. Gene himself on a Sunday evening while I was making Lily's dinner. I almost didn't pick up. He said he wanted me to know that none of this was personal, that he had always respected me, that he hoped we could move forward for Lily's sake. I stirred the pasta. I thought about the bounce house. I thought about the purple dress and the driveway and the question she asked me. I said, "I agree. We should move forward for Lily's sake." I said, "She loves you and I would never take that from her." I said, "I hope going forward we can be more honest with each other." He said yes. He said, "Of course." I said, "She has a dance recital in December. I'll send you the details." He said, "Thank you." I said goodbye and hung up and finished making the pasta and called Lily for dinner. And she came running in her socks and slid 3 feet on the kitchen floor and laughed like it was the funniest thing that had ever happened to her. And I thought, this is what I was protecting. I'm not going to tell you Sandra and I are close now. We're not. We're cordial in the way that two people can be cordial when they have both seen each other's worst cards and decided that the child in the room is more important than the hand. She came to the dance recital in December. She sat 2 rows behind me and Conrad. At intermission, she found Lily in the hallway still in her costume. She was a snowflake, white tulle and silver glitter, so much glitter. And she picked her up and hugged her, and Lily said, "Grandma, you came," in the exact same voice she'd used at the window in October. And I had to look at the wall for a second. I'm not made of stone. But here's what I know. I didn't win because I got angry. I didn't win because I made it personal or messy or loud. I won because I did what I was trained to do. I read the paperwork. I followed the numbers. I waited until the right moment, and I laid it down quietly, and I let the documents speak. Sandra called me unstable to a mediator's face in October. In December, she drove 40 minutes to watch her granddaughter be a snowflake. The numbers don't lie. And I was never unstable. I was just paying attention. There's one more thing. After the recital, when Lily was changed back into her regular clothes and hopped up on sugar cookies from the little reception table, she grabbed my hand and my ex-mother-in-law's hand at the same time, one in each of hers. And she pulled us both toward the cookie table with absolutely no awareness of the year we had just lived through. Sandra looked at me over Lily's head. I looked back. We didn't say anything. There was nothing to say that the 4-year-old between us hadn't already said better. I squeezed Lily's hand. She had no idea she just brokered a piece. She was already reaching for another cookie. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in that mediation room. Not the legal part, the human part. Sandra sat across from me and said I was unstable, and she believed it. That's the thing I keep coming back to. She genuinely believed it, because I had never once shown her otherwise. I had been quiet and steady and competent for 6 years, and she had looked at that quietness and decided it meant weakness. That's not a villainous thing, really. It's just a very human mistake. People confuse stillness with emptiness all the time, but here's what I learned. The gap between what people assume about you and what is actually true is not a wound. It's a resource. Every time Sandra dismissed me, every time Jean called me the accountant like it was something small, every time Conrad waved away the question of shared assets, they were making a choice, and that choice had weight. Actions accumulate. Patterns build. The decision to cut corners on an asset disclosure doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because someone has decided the other person won't notice, won't push back, won't know how. They made that calculation about me, and they were wrong, and the spreadsheet proved it. I don't think of what I did as revenge. I've turned that word over a lot and it doesn't fit. Revenge is emotional, reactive, aimed at hurting. What I did was correction. I found what was mine, I documented it, I presented it through proper channels, and I let the system do what it exists to do. There's a difference between those two things, and I think it matters. especially if you're the kind of person who wants to sleep at night. What I want to say to anyone sitting where I was sitting, in the kitchen after the bounce house, after the purple dress, after the driveway vigil, is this: your composure is not the same as your surrender. The fact that you didn't scream, didn't retaliate, didn't blow everything up, does not mean you were powerless. It means you were paying attention. It means you were building something they couldn't see yet. Lily is going to grow up watching how I handled this. She won't know the details for a long time, maybe ever. But she will watch me be steady. She will watch me be honest. She will watch me fight for what's fair through the right channels and let the outcome speak. I think that's worth more than any dramatic confrontation scene. I think integrity practiced quietly over time in the small decisions and the late nights and the moments when no one is watching, that compounds. It builds into something real. Sandra came to the recital. She drove 40 minutes in December traffic, and she sat 2 rows behind me, and she watched her granddaughter be a snowflake. That happened because I didn't let my anger make my decisions. Because I protected Lily from the war even while I was fighting it. The cause and the effect are not mysterious. You treat a child like a prize to be won, and you lose. You treat a child like a person to be loved, and you show up in December. It's that simple. It's that hard.